Good morning. And I say good morning to everyone, including those who are joining us on our webcast this morning. And I want to welcome you to this full meeting of Salford City Council. Before we begin the formal meeting, could I ask you to join me in civic prayers, which this morning will be conducted by the Reverend Martin Collins of Holy Cross Church, Eccles.
Thank you. And thanks for this opportunity to share in prayer with you this morning. So good morning, everyone. Let us pray. Lord, we ask your blessing today upon this city of Salford, upon all the people who live and work here, and upon all its leaders and officers, everyone who serves on this council, and all our council workers. We pray especially today for Councillor John Mullen, beginning his term as ceremonial mayor. Lord, we give thanks today for your gifts of life and energy, motivating us to move forward day by day and to face all the challenges that confront us with that sense that every true good is worthy of our pursuit and is made possible by your grace. We give thanks for everything that's been achieved and everything that will be achieved in this city through the continued dedication and commitment of all who serve on this council and through their careful discernment and wise deliberations. And calling to mind all the people of Salford, we pray especially for those who are finding things difficult just now. People from all walks of life, the young, families, the elderly, the isolated. And we give thanks for all those people who in big and small ways, day by day, are striving to help. We give thanks too for the work here of the NHS and for all those serving in care homes around the city. We pray that all of us will have the strength of will, the wisdom and the compassion to go on working to make people's lives better throughout the city in these troubled times. Guide, we pray, O Lord, this meeting today and light up the way ahead with hope and with confidence. Amen.
Thank you, Father Collins. Okay, I'll now open the business of council, item 1. So good morning, everyone. I have been notified to submit a motion seeking a suspension of the normal rules of debate for this item to allow a variation of speech times, which I propose to be considered at item 6. I also understand the Conservative groups will be submitting an amendment. Okay, somebody sharing the screen. Okay, it is the intention that I will ask for a 10-minute break at approximately 11 a.m. I would suggest that this provisionally be on or during item 6, or if I decide a more appropriate time is indicated by proceedings. I hope you're all happy with that. Councillor Ronnie Wilson, can I ask you to stop sharing your screen, please? Okay, item 2, apologies. Can I ask the Senior Democratic Services Officer, Mike Relf, to read out the names of members present and those who have submitted apologies?
Yeah. As of 9:30 when the meeting commenced, I have present the City Mayor Paul Dennett, Councillors Antrobus, August, Barnes, Bellamy, Bentham, Boshell, Brocklehurst, Brooks, Birch, Kamel, Clark, Collinson, Critchley, Dawson, Dickman, Fletcher, Robin Garrido, Hamilton, Hesling, Hines, Humphreys, Jolly, Jones, Kelly, King, Lancaster, Leitner, Lewis, McCusker, McIntyre, Merry, Morris, Mullen, Nelson, Curran-Ziza, Pevitt, Gina Reynolds, Neil Reynolds, Ryan, Saunders, Turner, Wade, Joan Walsh, John Walsh, Ward, Warmisham, Warner, Wheeler and Wilson, and I received apologies from councillors Cohen, Karen Garrido, Walker and Weir.
Mike, I also have last minute apologies for Councillor Edwards, who wasn't able to submit them in advance.
Yeah, no problem. We'll make sure those get put in for her.
And Councillor Sharp is present as well.
Yeah. I'm not sure she said apology for Councillor Bentham.
I've got Councillor Bentham in as being present in the meeting.
Yeah, I'm in the room. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, is that all agreed, or are there any more amendments to be taken?
Agreed.
Okay, great. Moving on. Item 3.
Chair. Hi, yeah, it's Arnie Saunders. I'd like to declare an interest which is on record, as we're going to discuss social care precept, adult social care precept. I ought to declare the fact that I have a small paid job as a chaplain in one of the care homes in Salford.
So noted, Councillor, thank you.
And just for myself, Councillor Dawson, for housing, I'm on the board for housing.
Okay.
Chair, can I also declare an interest as a member of the board for Viva?
John, Tracy Keller, Derive Director, thank you.
Same for me, Councillor Mullen. I am also Director of Derive.
Okay, are there any other members with interest to declare? Can you declare them now, please? Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on now to item 4, Cabinet Membership 2020 and /21. Really hate saying that. So can I ask the City Mayor to present his report, which details proposed amendments to the membership of his mayoral team, after which I will permit members to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. This report is before Council today following the resignation of Councillor Derek Antrobus from the mayoral team at the end of January. Colleagues may be aware, but Councillor Antrobus won't be standing in the forthcoming elections in May. And obviously at the moment he's taken on additional responsibilities with the Open University. I have communicated this to all members of the council in an email, and as is highlighted in the report before colleagues today, Councillor Antrobus stepped down from the mayoral team on the 31st of January as lead member for planning and sustainable development. I just want to pay thanks and tribute to Councillor Antrobus. It's been a real joy, honour and privilege really working with him over the past nearly 5 years as Mayor of the City of Salford, and prior to that in the previous Mayor's cabinet. Councillor Antrobus has a real passion for the City of Salford, and colleagues might be aware, but he's been on the City Council since 1979, which incidentally was the same year that I was born. So I found that quite interesting. Colleagues will be aware he's had executive responsibilities since 2003 for planning and sustainable development, and he served his apprenticeship years, if you like, under stalwarts of Salford Labour Party, councillors Bernard Pennington and councillor Ben Walsworth, who I know we all fondly remember and miss dearly. You'll also be aware that, you know, Councillor Antrobus has overseen many achievements in the City of Salford, probably far too many to go into today, but I did want to highlight a couple of those. One being the reclamation of Blackleach Reservoir and Cutacre Tip, which, as we all know, has now been transformed into a fantastic country park, which, you know, we all know our green spaces have been critical during the COVID-19 pandemic. Councillor Antrobus, as colleagues will know, was also integral and very involved in setting the vision for the realisation of Media City UK and, more broadly speaking, Salford Quays. He was also ahead of the game, and this isn't surprising for our learned Councillor Antrobus, around the importance of walking and cycling. And you'll all be aware in different parts of the city we have off-road cycle and walking ways, what we commonly refer to as the loop lines. And before we had a walking and cycling commissioner in place within Greater Manchester, Councillor Antrobus was on with putting this much loved infrastructure across the whole of our city. Importantly for us as well, you'll be aware that he has previously chaired the Regional Flood and Coastal Committee, which has been instrumental in terms of responding to the Boxing Day floods of 2015. And Councillor Antrobus was instrumental working with the Environment Agency and DEFRA to ensure the realisation of a second flood basin in the city of Salford, protecting 1,900 homes and businesses in that part of the city, predominantly Lower Broughton, but other parts of the city inevitably are benefiting from that. And now the second reservoir is a much loved kind of wildlife conservation area almost for any of you who've been there recently, and people love to walk and cycle and spend time walking around it. It is a fantastic achievement over recent years. In addition to that, you'll be aware that he's been instrumental in the greening of the city of Salford and the rewilding of the city, and he's also overseen the climate change strategy over the last 5 years in my mayoral team. So I won't go on, but just to say, you know, Councillor Antrobus will be deeply missed. In terms of the paper before colleagues today, this is around the interim arrangements for the mayoral team at this point in time. As you can see from the paper before you, Councillor John Merry will be taking on those lead member responsibilities for planning and sustainable development, and Councillor Mike McCusker will continue to be the executive support member for planning, housing and sustainable development. All other roles and responsibilities within the mayoral team remain unchanged. So I'll move this report, and can I thank Councillor Antrobus for his commitment to the city and also his commitment to the people of Salford. He will be deeply, deeply missed. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, City Mayor. Can I have any questions, any comments, please? Okay. Can then I ask the council to note the amendments to the membership of Cabinet as detailed in the report, and do I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
Proposed, Councillor Dawson.
Seconded.
Councillor McIntyre.
No, noted. Thank you. Okay, I'll now move on to item 5. It's the appointment of an interim.
Sorry, excuse me, Councillor Mullen. Can we just confirm that we have that item agreed, please?
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
Many thanks.
Yeah. Can we please just confirm that?
Agreed.
Aye.
Agreed.
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 Aye.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you. I trust that now meets the council's understanding of an agreed item. So I'll move on to item 5. Again, can I ask the Chief Executive to present his report, which details the interim post of the City Solicitor Monitoring Officer, after which, again, I will ask members if they want any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. The report before you is in light of the news that I'm sure all members are aware of, which is that our City Solicitor, Sean Roxburgh, is due to leave the Council towards the end of March this year. In line with this scheme of delegation, as the report sets out, we have been through a selection and appointment process which took place on the 12th of February, involving a cross-party appointments panel, following which it was agreed to appoint David Wilcock as our interim City Solicitor and Monitoring Officer for a number of months to tide us over as we go through the substantive recruitment for that post. David Wilcock, as members will know by now, brings extensive and very relevant local government experience as a monitoring officer, particularly recently in Rochdale Borough Council. So in line with the Constitution and the Officer Employment Procedure rules, this appointment, even though it's an interim appointment, does require approval and ratification by Council, and the recommendation in my report is that Council approves the appointment of the interim City Solicitor on that basis. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. So, any members got any questions or comments, please? Okay. Can I then ask, do we have a proposer and a seconder, please?
Proposer, Chair. Councillor Walsh.
Second it, Councillor Hines.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, I ask the council if you are happy that that is now agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, item 6. Okay, at this point, can I ask the City Mayor to propose a motion in accordance with Rule 2, 1 and 16 of the Council Constitution, seeking a suspension of standing orders for this item. This is to allow a variation to the length of speech. Okay, do I have a proposer and a seconder?
Happy to propose the motion to suspend to allow for an extension to speech time. Councillor Mullen, thank you.
I'm happy to second, assuming there's no dissent. Otherwise, I'd want to speak.
Okay. Noted, Councillor Merritt. Okay. If there's no one to speak against it, can I ask the council, is this agreed?
Agreed.
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 Agreed. Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, the City Mayor is now asked to present his report for 2021-2022 Revenue Budget and Capital Programme, after which I will ask Councillor Bill Hines as lead member for Finance and Support Services to second their proposals. Okay, and I then will ask the Conservative group if they wish to submit a moment. So at this point, I'm handing over to the City Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to members of the Council. I'm here today to recommend that the Council approves my budget for 21-22. This is the 5th budget I've presented to this chamber. Obviously, the past 12 months for all of us have been unlike any that many of us will have experienced in our lives. The pandemic has affected every aspect of our city, our residents, our businesses, our communities, our partners and stakeholders, and our own organisation. It has been an honour and a privilege to serve as the City Mayor for the City of Salford. The past 12 months have simply shown the very best of our city and the spirit of Salford. But the pandemic has also had far-reaching implications on the Council's financial situation, one that we all know was already challenging even before the events of 2020, after 10 years of austerity. This will continue to impact directly on the services we are able to deliver to our residents. And despite what some would tell us, those challenges have not gone away and will continue to face some really tough choices as we move forward. I believe the budget I'm presenting to Council today represents, as far as is possible, a responsible and fair set of proposals. Before going into detail on the budget before Council today, let me first outline the technical elements of the budget I'm presenting to Council today. I'm recommending an overall revenue budget of 175,635,000 for 21-22. I'm also recommending a capital programme of 48.874 million for 21-22, using the resources set out in Part 3 of the report. In accordance with the formal resolution set out at Appendix 4, I'm proposing a council tax requirement of 116.17 million in accordance with the legislation. A basic amount of council tax of £1,705.71 and an amount for each valuation band in accordance with the legislation. An amount of council tax for each valuation band in accordance with sections 30 and 36 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992. I'm also recommending that Council approves the housing revenue account for 21-22 of £15.253 million. Finally, from a technical point of view, I'm recommending that Council approves the Treasury Management Prudential Indicators for 21-22 and 23-24, so across those years, as set out in Part 4 of the report. I'm also presenting alongside the budget an updated medium-term financial strategy, which sets out our financial planning assumptions over the next 3 years up until 23-24. Members will also be aware that we agreed our first substantial medium-term financial strategy 12 months ago. But obviously the events of the past 12 months have significantly impacted our medium-term planning, and it is prudent to set out the financial assumptions that will be necessary in guiding our decision-making over the next few years. So let me now turn to the main part of my speech today at Budget Council. As I said at the outset, 2020 has been unlike any year that we've ever experienced in recent memory. Every family, business, community group and workplace in the city has been directly affected by the pandemic and its public health and social and economic consequences. And all of our thoughts continue to remain with those who have sadly lost loved ones and those who continue to struggle with the ongoing impacts of restrictions and lockdowns. I'd also like to comment on the hard work and the amazing spirit of Salford shown by our staff and partners and the community and voluntary sector and residents throughout the pandemic. Any organisation, as colleagues know, is only as strong as the people within it. And this year, council staff, together with councillors, partners, the NHS, the public sector, voluntary and community and social enterprise sector, and the private sector and our residents and communities themselves, have all pulled together to help each other and to support the most vulnerable within our communities. I could not be any prouder of the efforts I've witnessed during this time. I do think it's worth us reflecting, however, on just some of the ways that our City Council has responded. In April, a team of council and NHS staff worked around the clock, setting up a test centre at the AJ Bell Stadium in just 24 hours. This crucial facility has continued to provide COVID-19 testing to healthcare, education and council key frontline workers. And we continue to grasp opportunities to strengthen our support to help fight the virus within our communities, extending the rollout of the lateral flow testing. In July, we set up our own local contact tracing led by our public health team here in the City Council. Responding early to suspected or potential cases, the team has consistently outperformed the national test and trace system in contacting people and ensuring isolation support is in place. Since March last year, a combined communications and engagement team involving the council, the community and voluntary sector, and also residents and communities, the CCG, housing partners, neighbourhood managers, have directly delivered engagement with residents and businesses to raise awareness and compliance with safety measures and restrictions. Over 87,000 individual conversations have taken place in our city, with over 45,000 hygiene packs containing face coverings and hand gel being given out to our residents. We've been working also alongside our 42 care homes since the start of the outbreak, and this joint effort has maintained service resilience and delivery of care. We've offered targeted financial support to ensure that homes remain viable and we're able to support their workforce, including paying staff 100% of normal wages when they were not in work for COVID-related reasons. And we continue to work with care homes as we successfully roll out the vaccine and facilitate COVID-safe visiting arrangements. In March, we established the Spirit of Salford Helpline to be the single coordinated point of access for all residents who considered themselves vulnerable or who may have needed additional support. The helpline is a cross-sector, cross-organisational partnership between the city's many voluntary and community sector and public sector organisations, and it's coordinated by the communications and customer service team here at the City Council. Since March, the helpline has made almost 8,500 referrals for support to a range of 18 core support services. We've responded to over 31,000 calls, coordinated the delivery of 3,210 food parcels via the Food Hub, and organised over 2,000 free school meal vouchers in October half term. The helpline has also managed over 2,100 calls for local test and trace team and over 1,000 calls about self-isolation payment support. We've ensured financial support reaches as many of our businesses as possible, administering a complex number of support grants, including the government's cash grants for small businesses and retail, hospitality and leisure businesses, as well as the Salford discretionary grants funding, and more recently, the financial support for businesses through the continued national lockdown. In total, we have administered 61 million to businesses in the city. We've also introduced COVID safety risk assessments for every frontline worker in the city, ensuring they can continue to support residents whilst looking after their own safety, health and well-being. And these, in many respects, are just some examples of the phenomenal efforts of our staff, councillors and partners across the city. This is by no means an exhaustive list. Every team and every member of staff has risen to the challenge, showing the spirit of Salford. And for this, I would like to thank each and every one of you. However, at the same time, our response has been obviously fantastic in the city. The demand for additional council services and the loss of incomes to the council has significantly undermined the financial assumptions I present to council only 12 months ago. The council's financial planning is now under more pressure and with continuing uncertainty about long-term funding arrangements. 11 years of a Conservative-led government have significantly impacted councils up and down the country, and particularly here in Salford. And the past 12 months have starkly illustrated the reduced capacity of our essential public services. Every year I begin by highlighting the impact of the government austerity programme on Salford, and I make no apology for doing that. In those 11 years, the council will have made almost 222 million of cuts and unfunded budget pressures. As I have said before, no council, no organisation can lose over 50% of its budget without a direct impact on services and those that need them the most. Government published its final local government funding settlement earlier this month, and despite much of the rhetoric over the past year about the value of local public services and the need to continue to invest in them, this simply is not reflected in the reality of funding for Salford. Even after the government have confirmed their final funding settlement for local government, Salford is still facing a further 32.7 million of financial pressures over the next 3 years. Many of the pressures in our budget were there this time last year. You know, the growth in demand for children and adult social services, the rising costs of providing targeted and specialist services, and the long-term reduction in central government funding for essential local services. This year, those long-term challenges have been compounded and exacerbated by the very different and urgent demands of the COVID-19 pandemic. This has led to an even faster and greater increase in the demand for a wide range of services, compounded by a loss of income critical to the council's financial planning. The strength of our financial management and the growth we have delivered across the city continue to mean we can take steps to cushion somewhat the impact of these further cuts to our funding. but that ability is being eroded by continued pressures, uncertainty in long-term funding, and with the ongoing financial impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. We cannot and we must not return to the practices of old and just set a budget for one single year. Instead, we have chosen to continue with our more prudent approach and continue to plan our financial decisions over the next 3 years. This longer term approach set out in the medium term financial strategy before council today means that I can present to you today a balanced budget for 21-22. But we all must be clear, this will not be easy. This balanced budget relies entirely on all teams in the council coming together to deliver a further 10.9 million of financial pressures already required from last year's budget. It will depend on full receipt of additional funding announced in the financial settlement and on government fully funding any new additional pressures that arise as a result of the pandemic during the year. It will also depend on the safe, timely and effective delivery of savings and reductions that have been agreed in previous years. And it will depend on financial decisions set out in the budget report. Much has been made of additional funding provided to local government for 21-22, with the government heralding the increase in local government core spending. Government have confirmed increased investment in additional social care grant, and Salford will receive 2.2 million in 21-22, taking our total adult social care grant to 10.4 million. This is very much welcome. Also, the Better Care funding will also announce it's been continued by government. But even with this funding, we continue to face huge funding gaps and service pressures in the delivery of both children's and adults' social care. And unbelievably, after 12 months of an unprecedented public health crisis, the government has still failed to confirm the public health grant for 21-22. And we have no alternative but to assume funding will match that in 2021. Even more unbelievably is the growing scandal that there remains no long-term clarity on solutions to address the growing social care crisis, affecting people and councils all over the country, despite a green paper being promised back in March 2017, nearly 4 years on. With government favouring to spend time, effort and energy on planning reforms, further NHS reforms, rather than tackling the social care funding crisis and the scourge of poverty pay amongst our frontline care workers. The past 12 months have surely demonstrated the moral duty on all of us to agree a long-term sustainable model for social care. Government have also heralded a 4.6% increase in core spending in local government. But let me be absolutely clear. This figure relies on councils applying the maximum allowable increase in council tax and the adult social care precept, and on assumptions about growth in the council tax base for each council. To be very clear, this means passing on increased local taxes to residents. 87% of the increase in core spending will come from those increases in local taxes, from local council taxpayers. It will not come from increases in funding by central government. Once again, this government have simply passed the burden of funding local services onto local residents. After much careful consideration, I have taken the decision, along with members of my mayoral team, to increase the council tax by 1.99% and to increase the adult social care precept by 2% for 21-22. I realise that this relies on our residents to continue to contribute more to the services we are able to provide. It is not how I believe services should be funded. Improvements made to our council tax support scheme last year remain in place to help those struggling to pay, and our debt advice services across the city are more important now than ever. I am, though, committed to ensuring we minimise the impacts of these changes on our most vulnerable residents, those that can least afford them. The additional investment raised through this increase means I'm not standing before you today proposing even further cuts to services for our residents in 21-22. I do, though, need to be clear. We still face significant challenging times ahead, and I must continue to deliver on the changes and transformations we've already committed to. I've also asked the lead member for adults' health and well-being to work with officers across the council and CCG to explore what progress we can make to pay our care workers in the City of Salford the real living wage. We need to make more progress towards paying that, but obviously this is constrained by the financial challenges we're all facing. This, though, is highly dependent, as I've already highlighted, on the pressures elsewhere in the children's and adults' budgets. Government last year promised greater long-term certainty of funding for councils across the country. Unfortunately, this has not materialised. The local government finance settlement is again for 1 year only. Despite repeated promises, we continue to have no clarity on funding beyond this next financial year. Announcements on fair funding formula for local government, business rates reset, and changes to business rate retention levels are still awaited. The future of social care remains unclear. Government has announced another round of organisational changes for the NHS, and the impact on local health budgets is unclear beyond this financial year. And now more than ever, government must learn the lessons from the pandemic, especially if they're serious about rebalancing the economy and levelling up. Government must now take seriously the demographic, poverty, inequalities and fairness challenges faced by councils and cities like our own. Locally, I'll be bringing forward plans in the next month or so as a basis for Salford's recovery and fight back. Plans to build a more inclusive economy for all, to bring much closer together our plans for health, tackling poverty and inequality, and to develop a learning city enabling large numbers of good jobs for our residents. Government must play its part. It must deliver on its commitment to level up and to invest in areas like Salford. Otherwise, Salford will continue to face significant financial risks well into the future. It is time for this government to deliver, to invest to end poverty, to invest to end inequality, to invest in local services, and to provide a fair and level playing field for communities and cities such as ours. I commend both the annual budget and the 3-year medium-term financial strategy to the council today. Together, they deliver a prudent approach to managing the council's finances in extremely challenging times, whilst enabling us to support residents and invest in the council's strategic priorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, City Mayor. Can I now call on Councillor Hines as lead member for Budget and Capital Programme to second the motion?
Chair, I'm pleased to second the motion and I reserve my right to speak as the debate takes place.
Thank you. Okay, can I now ask Councillor Turner, who has indicated to me that he wishes to move an amendment.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome to your first council meeting, and I hope it's a memorable one for you. Can I start by thanking Joanne and her team for their assistance to us in answering all the many questions that we have asked, and all the staff that have helped with our proposals. We do indeed meet today under the most difficult of circumstances, still in lockdown, hoping for better times ahead when once again the buzz of the council chamber will be heard. The vaccine programme is proceeding at pace due to the magnificent effort of our NHS, Salford Council and its staff and the many, many volunteers. We are extremely grateful to them all. You will have our amendment by now, and it's self-explanatory. And thank you, Mike, for circulating it. Your IT skills are far better than my own. You will see that our amendment differs from the City Mayor's budget, as it proposes to add money to adult social care, not by increasing the council tax and hitting people's pockets, but by the use of reserves. The past year has been one of the most difficult in most people's lifetime. The pandemic has threatened our very existence and our way of life as we know it. I think that is something that we can all agree on. It has affected the lives of people. They have lost loved ones, employment, businesses, young people's educations. Pretty well every aspect of society has been affected. The government has fortunately rose to the challenge and given unprecedented targeted support, which has saved over 12 million jobs that otherwise would have been lost. This government has delivered one of the most comprehensive economic responses in the world, providing over £280 billion. The Prime Minister assured Parliament as recently as Monday he would continue to support people and the economy as long as is necessary. The Chancellor will no doubt be giving further details in his budget next week. At January's meeting, I shared with you all the details of COVID-related help that this council had received since December, up to December, sorry. This amounted to approximately £100 million. Today, I can confirm that a further 21 million has been received with a promise of more to come. We are the party of the people. We believe in lower taxes while still providing residents with the services that they're entitled to expect at a price that they can afford. Just as the government has supported the people throughout this awful pandemic, we in Salford must also do everything possible to help our hard-pressed residents. What we should not be doing is piling more pressure on them by again increasing their council tax. This is exactly what the City Mayor's budget will do. It will pour misery on residents already suffering, and we will not support it. Let's be clear, it's the City Mayor's budget based on his priorities, and he's asking council to agree to increase the burden on already hard-pressed residents. The government is not forcing any council to increase council tax. It's solely a matter for the council as to how much to charge in council tax. In other words, they have the budget, how they spend it, is entirely a matter for the council. Can I also make it perfectly clear, we do not support the mayoral precept regarding the police of an extra £10. This is a police force classed as inadequate and in special measures. The government has already poured millions into the GMP. Our amendment proposes no increase above the precepts, which unfortunately we can't do much about, though we wish we could. Savings will need to be made by councils, must always be looking for ways of getting best value and saving taxpayers' money. If you really want to help the residents of Salford, you must vote for our amendment today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Can I have a seconder for Councillor Turner, please?
I'll second the motion.
Sorry, who was that?
That's Councillor Clark.
Councillor Clark, thank you very much. Okay, just so we're clear to members, we are now speaking on the amendment. Okay, and the first person I have up is Councillor Hines, please.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I'm going to oppose the amendment. And I'm going to oppose the amendment on the grounds that if we don't raise the council tax, we will be in a more serious position going forward. And I'd just like to remind the Leader of the Opposition that we ourselves, only at last month's council meeting, moved a motion that we wouldn't have to raise the council tax. The government itself, in these unprecedented times, these serious times, do help us in the sense that they waive council tax increases at this present time. Remember, even during the austerity period of Cameron and Osborne, they froze the council tax for a number of years. But the real issue that we're going to raise the council tax is to protect the jobs and services of the people going forward into the years that are going to be very, very difficult for us. Councillor Turner talks about reserves. It is as though that the reserves are lying behind the settee doing nothing. Amount of cash that's there doing absolutely nothing. That money is earmarked. The Section 151 officer, I understand, our Chief Financial Officer, has taken through the opposition, as we do year on year, about the state of our reserves. And by the way, we are going to take some of our reserves this year to support the revenue budget, as we've done in previous years. But I, in discussion with the Section 151 Chief Financial Officer, will release reserves, earmark reserves, when it's appropriate to do that. And therefore, I don't want to be going in at the moment, already, as the opposition leader knows, that next year we have a balanced budget for 21-22, but 22-23 and 23-24 leaves us in a more serious position. To not raise the council tax this year, which we did not want to do, and by the way, the opposition voted against last month's council motion on that, but now are playing politics by trying to say that the people of this city will obviously benefit from a no council, which they will, but at the expense of taking reserves. Now, we've seen reserves being taken in other parts of the country that have left those authorities in a serious state. The one that springs to mind, of course, is Northampton, which did do that. And by the way, you can only spend reserves once. So therefore, if we did not raise the council tax, we took it from reserves, that leaves the reserves in a worse position, but also the council tax base for next year, when we're already looking at just under an £11 million saving, will be in a serious position. It is totally incompetent and mischievous of the Leader of the Opposition to talk about a freeze of council tax and the precept in this year. I'll leave it at that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. Can I ask Councillor Merrick to speak next, please?
Thank you very much. I'm at least grateful to Councillor Turner for being very clear in his proposal. However, reading the small print rather reminds me of one of those documents you used to get where there'd be about 20 pages telling you how good this particular offer was, and a small in small print at the bottom telling you the reality of it. Yes, it is true that he's proposing to spend £4.5 million from earmarked reserves, not from reserves, from earmarked reserves, right, at the bottom. Those reserves, as far as I'm aware, Councillor Garrido, you've never identified as being excessive in terms of the council, and you've accepted the explanation as to why we have those earmarked reserves. Councillor Knight Leitner on the internet claimed we had masses in those earmarked reserves. He seemed to be implying that we should spend the balances that schools have got, we should spend the insurance fund, and we should spend the money on keeping the council tax down that government has given us for grants to businesses. I hope that that's not what Councillor Turner is proposing, and I hope he repudiates those particular ideas. But what he goes on to say, and this is the hidden part of what he's proposing, is that those £4.5 million, having been informed by the Section 151 officer, basically that is a reckless way forward. Well, fine, we'll just find £4.5 million of efficiency savings, as he puts it, in the year. He doesn't say where those savings are going to come.
Point of information, Chair.
Okay, please, I hope it doesn't go against my time. I'll listen to the point of information.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. What I actually said, what I wrote on Twitter, which Councillor Merry is referring to, I posted a video of my comments at the last full council meeting. Now, if Councillor Merry is saying that what I said can't be done, why didn't he say that at the last meeting?
Right, okay. Right.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Leitner.
Right, thank you, Councillor Leitner, for that comment. What I'm commenting on is your remarks on Twitter where you claimed there was masses in reserves and you actually specified school reserves in the insurance fund and the money coming in from government. If you didn't tell the truth on Twitter, I think you ought to admit that. Can I just move on from that to make it clear? There is £4.5 million being proposed in so-called efficiency savings this year. What they actually mean, and because it would have to be a revenue budget cut, is loss of jobs, loss of services, and a worse provision for the majority of the people of this city. And they don't specify where it's going to come from. Is it going to come from not collecting the dustbins? Is it going to come from not filling the potholes? Which members of staff are they proposing to make redundant? Which people are they proposing to subject to the misery of losing their jobs? No, none of that is actually specified in this particular, sorry? Right, none of that is actually specified in this particular proposal. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a bit like having been informed by the bank manager, the Section 151 officer, your proposal is completely reckless. Okay, we'll reduce our expenditure. And by the way, bank manager, will you tell me where I should cut? Because we're not going to specify it because we know that's going to be unpopular. We'll ask the officers to do it, either in the 4 weeks before the new budget is due to take effect, or through the year, in which case there'll be even greater cuts. They should tell us where they're proposing to make the cuts. They should tell us what the actual reality of their particular budget is, rather than pretend that there is some magic money tree, as Theresa May once put it, where the money can be found without any effect on the well-being of the people of this city. I hope that we reject this particular amendment on the grounds that it's unrealistic, that it's not going to be feasible, and that it's going to cause untold misery to the people of this city.
Thank you, Councillor Merritt. Councillor Reynolds.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think Councillor Hines and Councillor Merry have really said it all. I mean, and for the reasons they've given, I can't support the amendment. And let's be clear, you know, the amounts of monies that they're talking about and the money that's going to be raised from the adult social care precept is a drop in the ocean of what funding's required. It is a sticking plaster over a gaping funding wound. You know, we're facing pressures of well over 8 million in the integrated fund. So, you know, some of these figures don't even come near what's required. You know, we have been put in a position where, you know, local government are taking the burden again for the government's failings. You know, as the city mayor said, and he was right to call the government out on the social care crisis, you know, we're being left in a situation where we're talking about unfair regressive taxation labelled as a social care precept. You know, we're in a position where, you know, unfortunately, we've been forced to make the public pay for the government's failings because they're not coming up with a long-term solution. You know, we've seen the dedication of the hard-working care workers doing a phenomenal job during the pandemic, protecting those they care for and stopping the spread of COVID. You know, I pay tribute to all of them. It's you know, a real mayoral priority, and we're working hard to achieve the real living wage for all these care workers with the CCG and our union colleagues in unison. You know, we can't achieve this, you know, without doing what we're doing here. You know, we've got financial pressures that have increased demand, increased complexity of need, concerns about the fragility of the social care market, and, as the City Mayor referenced, the NHS proposals, and all exacerbated by the pandemic. So I can't accept this amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Just a point in the proceedings here. I know I've got the City Mayor to comment. The City Mayor has a right to respond to the amendment at the end of the debate. I'm just wondering, do you want me to bring you in at that point or at the end, please?
Chair, I'm happy to come at the end of debate. Thank you.
Thank you, City Mayor. With that, can I call Councillor Nelson, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to welcome you to your place in chairing this meeting. I've described myself as someone who is open-minded and willing to look beyond party affiliation to work in the interest of residents who have sent me here to represent them. I'm also the youngest councillor in Salford and not particularly accustomed to budget council. And I didn't stand for council to support increases to council tax, particularly in times of crisis that we now find ourselves in. Faced with another round of government-inflicted cuts to our city during a pandemic which has devastated the lives and livelihoods of so many I represent, I believe the City Mayor and his cabinet have best shielded residents from those 10.9 million cuts the Conservative government have heaped onto our communities. A cumulative total, by the way, of £222 million stolen from this council and the people of this city since 2010. In an age when Salford and Salford people need to be believed in, invested in and allowed to innovate and create opportunities that improves our city and gives residents a chance to follow a pursuit they love, they're faced with Downing Street imposed cuts at council level. I just wonder why the government and members of the Salford Conservative group don't declare and follow up with an enough approach to cuts to Salford, which is a city that desperately needs investment and has been harmed by year-on-year neglect by a distant Westminster government. In my open-mindedness, I've been waiting all week for the Conservative group's alternative budget. Instead, at 8 o'clock this morning, I received an amendment to the budget from the Conservative group, which I think can only be described as the anxiety budget. The amendment moved by Councillor Turner includes a raid of earmarked council reserves, with the reimbursement of that raid being followed up by a mountainous £4.5 million worth of unspecified cuts and the deferment of addressing the black hole their government have created in our budget to next year, assumedly followed up with an enormous hike in council tax in 22-23. I describe what the Conservative group have put forward as the anxiety budget because nobody knows where the axe will fall on their £4.5 million cuts. Will it fall on our stripped back youth service, our libraries, discounts in council tax for the poorest people in our city, or maybe the food vouchers our council pays for to ensure children don't go hungry? Who knows? It's an anxiety budget for staff of the City Council and for the people of this city who depend on council services. And I'll finish on this. I'm absolutely shocked by the Conservative group's brazen attempt at taking a buy now, pay later approach to our council's finances. And when I say buy now, I mean, of course, in relation to the headlines in the Manchester Evening News are trying to grab with this publicity stunt, which would have this council going the same way as Tory-led Bolton Council, which is making staff redundant and increasing council tax by as much as possible in their first year of being in charge. It's a disservice to the staff of the council and a disservice to the people of this city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Pevitt, please.
I'd like to thank Councillor Nelson for that. It is a budget, you say. Well, listen to Councillor Turner telling us how much the government have actually spent on the COVID pandemic and what's happened. We heard recently in the courts that government ministers broke the law spending this money. A lot of this money has gone to the friends of the government. It's not come to the people. But yes, you know, it's COVID, make a profit. But when I saw this budget this morning, I think it was 8:20, it arrived in my box. 2 pages, an amendment. Well, I looked at it. It's not as like Johnson does, his plans on the back of a fag packet. No, this was the plans on a betting slip. We're going to bet this much money this year, and hopefully it'll win next year and we'll get it back from somewhere. We don't know where. We don't really care, as long as we can find it somewhere. Well, it's not just money. This is people's lives, as Councillor Nelson says. This is setting us up to fail next year for big tax hikes, for people's jobs to go. We don't know whose jobs. We don't know where the cuts will come. Cuts in social care. Will it be cuts to the schools everywhere across the city? It's not just money. It's cuts, cuts, cuts again. And that's all the Tories want. You're not safe with the economy. We've seen that over the years. Austerity's not worked. And now you're coming back with this. We'll cut again and find next year. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So I'm totally against this amendment. Well, not amendment, this little bet. This little have a go and forget, buy a lottery ticket this weekend. See how you do, Councillor Turner. Perhaps you could find your 4.3 million there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pevitt. Can I call on Councillor Kamel, please?
Thank you, Chair. At the spending review in 2020, the Conservative government set out additional funding for adult social care in 2021 to 22. The majority of this was to be delivered through the local authorities applying the 3% adult social care precept. In Salford, we are proposing to soften the blow on our residents by only applying 2% on the adult social care precept. The Salford Tories appear to completely disagree with their own government. In what appears to me to be blatant electioneering, the Salford Conservatives want to use £4.5 million of earmarked reserves that they acknowledge will have to be reinstated by identification of efficiencies within services, i.e., we're going to make unspecified cuts to services. They have made no attempt whatsoever to identify which services they wish to cut. The Salford Conservatives may as well follow the example of their Prime Minister and paint this £4.5 million on a side of a bus and drive it around the city. It's ludicrous to propose £4.5 million worth of cuts without any indication whatsoever of where these will come from. I oppose the Salford Conservative amendment, which to me is completely against the assumptions made by their own government and would put jobs and services at serious risk in Salford. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kamel. Councillor Fletcher, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and welcome to your first meeting as ceremonial mayor. Yeah, just brief points. I oppose the amendments. In contrast, our budget, as presented so well by our City Mayor earlier today, shows two most important things, and they are, number one, no cuts to jobs. Number two, no cuts to services. So I conclude that if our budget was accepted, Salford City Council are doing what they should be doing, i.e. protecting people's livelihoods and maintaining our excellent public services. Furthermore, other councils in Greater Manchester, such as Rochdale, are raising their council tax by 4.99, and in Salford it's 3.99. So I'd like to commend everybody involved in working out our budget and the officers and the mayor. And I think that we have the balance correct. As all the others have said, if the Tory amendments were accepted, there would be cuts to many services and a lot of people would lose their jobs, which is the opposite to our proposals. And I think that is the most important thing, no cuts to jobs and no cuts to services in the budget that we have put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Robin Garrido.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, can I say good luck to you as our ceremonial mayor on your first meeting, and I will try not to add to your burden. First of all, can I add my thanks to staff and volunteers throughout the city and our residents who have done so much to help us through this pandemic. And can I also add my thanks to the council as well? And I think thanks where thanks are due. The council, along with all the staff, volunteers and residents, have also done a brilliant job. But I'm also going to add into those thanks the government, which I'm afraid the city mayor failed to recognise the support that we've had from the government. So I would just like to add that into my thanks.
Point of information.
Can I move on now?
Chair.
Councillor, just bear with me while the city mayor makes a point of information, please.
Councillor Robin Garrido is misleading members of the council, and he's also misleading any members of the public who are watching this broadcast today. I did congratulate the government in my speech and address to council today for additional funding they've provided to the city council. So I'd request that he retracts the statement he's just made. Thank you.
Thank you, City Mayor. Councillor Garrido.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If the city mayor takes exception to that, I'll certainly withdraw it, but that wasn't certainly my impression. But can I just move on? We've just heard some of the anti-government rhetoric from the city mayor and general comments from Councillor Murray, but I do not intend to get drawn into this type of yaboo politics today. It's too serious a matter. Last year, I began by saying that as an opposition, this is possibly one of the most frustrating tasks to scrutinise the council's budget, decide how, in our opinion, it could be so much better, and realising that until May the 7th, we have no real power to change it. Well, as we know, Chair, because of COVID, we were not given the opportunity last May to take control of this council and to therefore be able to present a fully costed budget today. But we do look forward to May the 6th this year, when we will be asking the people of Salford to give us this opportunity. We do feel, though, that because of the extraordinary circumstances our residents have been put through, that this council must this year do all its power to relieve the burden on council taxpayers. This will not be easy. Hard decisions never are. But it is our job as a council to make these hard decisions. The government, as we have heard from Councillor Turner, have played their part by providing Salford with over £120 million in grants over the last 12 months and loans to help our residents through these difficult times. It is now up to us, Chair, to play our part. Large numbers of residents have been furloughed and suffered dramatic reductions in income. Many have lost their jobs and do not know if they will get them back, and this will have repercussions on families for many years. So what must we do today? We must not add to this financial burden our residents are facing. And this is why we are proposing a 0% increase in Salford's council tax, apart from, unfortunately, the Greater Manchester Mayor's precept, which will add, I think, about 0.5% to everyone's council tax. And just let me mention here that Mr Burden could well have frozen any increase this year, but only one local authority out of 10 voted against this increase. You guessed it, the only Conservative local authority of Greater Manchester, Bolton. All the other 9 who voted for the increase were Labour controlled. So I would say to the people of Salford, when the whole council has to be elected on May the 6th, consider who will manage your money better. Remember that if this amendment is defeated, who were the only ones who tried to prevent an extra financial burden on you? It was us, the Conservatives. As I have said on other occasions, we have heard a lot from the City Mayor about austerity. I challenge him now to thank the government for this enormous contribution to Salford to help us through this pandemic and perhaps he would like to elaborate on that when he comes back to sum up later. Instead of criticising at every opportunity, let him work with the government to help us pull out of the effects of this pandemic in Salford. And again, as I said last year, let us support the many and not just a few.
Can I ask you to wind up, Councillor, please?
Thank you. By accepting and voting for this amendment. But I think you will find in a moment that yet again the City Mayor will choose just to play politics. Unfortunately, as an opposition, we're not able to produce a full budget, and it is therefore not possible to make the huge increases which we feel would be necessary by releasing the burden on Salford residents by moving to a zero increase in council tax. Let us not hear that this cannot be done. This council spent millions of pounds on its harebrained schemes over the years, including building office blocks and stadia. So if the will is there, Chair, it can be done. Labour has been in charge of this city for over 50 years, and unfortunately one of the worst records when it comes to raising taxes, whether that be under the old rate system or the current council tax system. And let us remember, as I said last year, that this Labour council, when working with the last Labour government,
Chair, I thought you told him.
Levied some of the highest rates
in
the country.
Councillor Garrido, we had an agreement, please.
Well, over 8%.
Can you mute him, Chair?
Sorry, who's running the meeting, Mr. Mayor? Councillor Hines.
Councillors.
Find you, Mr. Mayor, then I will finish off. Finally, let me turn to all the backbenchers in this meeting today and say this is not your budget, it is the City Mayor's. And you have the power to trim its excesses by voting to help the people of Salford by supporting our zero increase. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Garrido.
Chair, can we all go a bit longer now then after Robbie Garrido's speech?
Councillors, I understand where you're coming from. He did go 50 seconds over.
I think a bit longer than that.
That's what I've got my little timer on. Okay, I'm not going to get into debate on that. I'm going to ask Councillor Saunders to speak next, please.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I was on mute there. Right, first of all, can I join everyone else in thanking all the people who've done so much to help us through the pandemic. I'd also like to welcome our new ceremonial mayor and indeed our new chief executive. I do believe this is his first meeting. Talking about chief executive, if I can just say something light-hearted for a moment before I come to the heavy stuff. Colleagues will remember that in the October meeting, when we formally appointed the new chief executive, I asked the mayor what his formal title was, pointing out that I also saw references to city director. The mayor assured me that he's not called the city director. Imagine my surprise when I read through the budget proposals and on page 150 of today's notes, that's 150 on the actual written notes, there was a reference to the city director. Now, coming to the more serious stuff, if you like. Now, the mayor always talks of liking evidence-based arguments. So let me, in support of the amendment, give the mayor some evidence. Firstly, my colleague Councillor Robin Garrido just referred to the Greater Manchester Mayor's precept. Well, as I'm sure colleagues are aware, the Greater Manchester Mayor actually did a survey of people's views on this, and as a result of the survey, actually reduced the amount he was asking for because the answer he got back was not quite the answer he wanted. So even with all the problems, well-documented problems they've got, people still voted for less increase or no increase at all. Also, I can share with you a conversation I had with a constituent quite randomly, just simply saying that we Conservatives are going to propose a no increase in council tax, expecting a pat on the back. And I didn't get a pat on the back. This lady said to me, never mind no increase, I'd like to see a reduction, given all the problems people have had over the past year. The mayors and others are constantly referred to the years of austerity. First, I'd like to remind the mayor that, to quote someone else, we're now under new management, and apart from the fact that we've had the pandemic, it was the government's intention not to continue with austerity. And if I can say this, and I know this is going to sound slightly controversial, but there were other parts of the economy, such as foreign aid, where things were not reduced, and maybe leaders of local government should look at themselves, perhaps having failed to make a good case to the then government for the continuing funding of local government over the last few years. Finally, Chair, if I can say that the Mayor and the others have accused us of not finding where we would have the savings. I think Councillor Nelson referred to an anxiety budget. Well, perhaps if the council had not refused to give us our political assistant at a mere cost of about 40,000, maybe we would have been able to prepare better for this budget and even found savings that perhaps the ruling group could have agreed to. Who knows? And let me say finally that, yes, we may not have been able to find at the moment those savings, but come May the 6th, when the residents of Salford have a unique opportunity, because of an all-out election and the mayoral election, to take control away from the one-party rule that has been for nearly 50 years.
To wind up, Councillor, please.
Thank you. And when we take control of the mayoralty and the council, we will then work very hard to identify those savings. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. Councillor Lightner, please.
Thank you, Chair. In his opening remarks, the city alluded to how difficult the past year has been on all of us. Residents and businesses alike are suffering financially, aside from the emotional and psychological effects lockdown has had on all of us. Yet Salford City Council wishes to raise the council tax, hitting residents hard during these very uncertain times. The fact that Salford Labour can't seem to find the funds from emergency reserves during these unprecedented times highlights their sheer incompetence. I know the city mayor models himself after the former failed socialist leader of the opposition, but my advice to him, to the mayor, is that he take a leaf out of the Prime Minister's book and instead throw his arms around the people that he represents instead of attacking them in their pockets. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lightner. Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chair. I'd like to echo everybody's compliments to you, John, and to the people working in the city. And I'd also like to echo what Councillor Nelson said. I see myself as a very open-minded person, and I do accept that people are entitled to their own opinion. But I need to speak against this amendment. I mean, Councillor Lightner has just admitted that we're living in very, very, very uncertain times. And so prudent people would not raid reserves or savings in uncertain times because they don't know what is in the future. Those are called earmarked reserves. They're earmarked because if there are uncertain times, we will need them. And we know that unemployment's rising. The Bank of England today yesterday forecast that it will rise to 7.5%. And the group of people who are going to be most affected by that and are currently most affected by that are the 18 to 24-year-olds. I've got to say that this amendment is a cheap, opportunistic political trick. It's no part to play in how a prudent council should run its affairs. And just as an aside, I'm a member of the Audit and Accounts Committee, and I think Councillor Garrido will say that I've been there all the time. I've been to every meeting. And at those, he's never intimated at that Audit and Accounts Committee that earmark reserves are not prudent, but now he's proposing to use them. I ask everyone to vote against this amendment.
On the point of information, Mr. Mayor, on the point of information,
Councillor Garrido.
I have never suggested anything of the kind today, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Sorry, I think I was muted there. I've not mentioned reserves at all in my speech today, so I'm being misquoted by Councillor Walsh. Can you withdraw that, please?
No, I won't withdraw it, because that is saying that your amendment to this is that you will use earmarked reserves. You are party to this amendment, although you didn't say it. Your party is saying used earmarked reserves. No, I will not withdraw that remark.
Well, typical, I'm afraid, of misinformation.
Okay, Councillor Walsh, can I ask you to continue speaking, please? Or are you
finished now, Chair? I've finished now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Jones.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to finish off on the point that Councillor Walsh made then, and Councillor Robin Garrido wasn't happy with it. So let me put it another way. Councillor Robin Garrido is chair of the Audit and Accounts Committee. And on the 22nd of July, we received a full report on the reserves and balances of the council. And we asked lots of questions. We got lots of answers from the officers, and the committee agreed with the level of reserves and commended the officers because of their report. And that was confirmed at a meeting on the 23rd of September, again, that Councillor Robin Garrido chaired. So let's just have it right, that members of the council have commended the officers for the fact that we've got the reserves and balances that we need to deal with some of the crisis situations we're going to face. In terms of...
Sorry, Chair, on a point of information again, please.
Councillor.
Okay, right. What Councillor Jones is talking about is a report to Audit and Accounts Committee, not a report on the council's budget for this year, but purely a report on last year's accounts. So let's have this right. What the Audit and Accounts Committee was doing was not discussing the council tax for this coming year. It was discussing the figures and what they are as a matter of fact for last year. Those were the audited accounts.
Point of information, if I may. I'm a bit baffled by that, because apparently Councillor Garrido is saying that the reserves were correct last year, but they're not correct this year. Perhaps Councillor Jones would like to comment on the miraculous change of heart that Councillor Robin Garrido has had.
Is that...
If I may continue, Chair.
Please do, Councillor.
I was just making the point that the Audit and Accounts Committee on the 22nd of July 2020 and the 23rd of September 2020 did consider the reserves and balances of this council, and they commended the officers for the work they'd done. And Councillor Garrido was one of the members of the committee, the chair of the committee, who accepted that. That's the point I'm making. The second one on the amendment.
I'm sorry, this is total misinformation. What the Audit and Accounts Committee considered were the accounts for last year, and yes, of course, the audited accounts have been audited, and the figures for last year were correct, and that's what the audited account votes on. Nothing to do with the setting of this year's budget, and you can't confuse the two.
Noted, Councillor. Councillor Jones, continue, please.
Look, Chair, let's not dwell on it, but the point I'm trying to make is that the Audit and Accounts Committee considered the reserves, and we were very pleased with the officers' report. If I move on, I just wanted to make the obvious point that Councillor Turner has moved an amendment which means a further something like £4.7 million worth of cuts. But I can only assume it's the hawks in the Conservative Party who've won the day on this, because I can't believe that Councillor Turner really wants to do that. Because what in effect it means is at least 200 to 250 jobs lost of the council. Some of them, because of the time scale, will probably be compulsory redundancies. And if the Conservative group won't say where these cuts are going to fall, well, I'll say, because I'm entitled to my view. Everybody said I'm entitled to. They will fall on social care. They will fall on mental health. They will fall on environmental services, cleaning the city, the number of people we have emptying the bins. These are where these cuts will fall, but the Conservative group don't want to say that. Well, I'll say it on their behalf. If you want £4.7 million worth of cuts, they will affect the people of this city, and that's why this Labour group will oppose them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Collinson.
Chair, I think it's Councillor Antrobus before Councillor Collinson. Sorry,
yes, it is, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, my apologies. Councillor Antrobus.
Thank you, Ceremonial Mayor. This debate started off rather sensibly, I think, with genuine issues between both sides, although recent contributions seem to be quite bizarre. And we have Councillor Saunders saying that it's the fault of local government that we aren't getting support from central government because we've failed to make the case. And the bizarre thing about it, of course, is that the people who have been making the case for local government have been the Conservative-led Local Government Association. So we're in this strange position where the Conservatives are secretly blaming themselves for the position that we're in. This is really surreal. But to get back to...
Point of information, Chair.
Go on.
Yes, Councillor Antrobus is correct. Remember at last month's council meeting, Councillor Turner asked me, and we responded with our views on the current proposals for council tax, and I reported in the positive saying that we had. I also then, after that meeting, emailed Councillor Turner to ask him had they made a response, and would they share it with us, because I said we'd share ours with them. He replied in the negative. He said no, he didn't say whether he had or he hadn't, but what he did say is that I will not share whatever with you. Thank you.
Councillor Hines, thank you for that. Councillor Antrobus, would you like to continue?
Yes, and Councillor Hines is, of course, quite right that the only things on which the Conservatives are consistent is their own inconsistency. But to get back to the amendment that has been proposed by Councillor Turner, it is the City Mayor kindly reminded members of the council that I've been a councillor for 42 years. And I think in all of that time, I do not think I have come across a set of proposals from the opposition which are more irresponsible, imprudent and politically dynamite. They are irresponsible because, as a number of members have pointed out, the basic argument that is being put forward is that I'm told that legally we can't spend this money. I'm going to spend it anyway, and I'm going to hope that the officers will be able to find some way out of the mess that I've created at some time during the year. That is not a responsible way to approach budget making. Secondly, it is imprudent. The basis of all budgeting is that you should not be using reserves. You should not be using your savings to fund current expenditure. And you need to make sure that you use current income to do that. And that's a basis that's been in place. And you know, members of the opposition really ought to know better than to be proposing this. But it is also political dynamite, because what they haven't said, what they want to avoid saying, is that what they are doing in this proposal is smuggling back austerity into the agenda. When you demand savings and you don't know where they're going to fall, then that is making savings, making cuts for the sake of making cuts. It is an ideological approach which puts cuts before making common sense decisions. And that was what austerity was all about, making cuts irrespective of the consequences. And we saw what the consequences were. If the saddest thing about the pandemic has been the number of people who have died, we in this country have faced a higher number than anywhere else in the world comparatively. And one of the reasons for that is that our public services weren't resilient enough to respond effectively. We never got in place an effective track and trace system. We just didn't do the basics right, getting the equipment out to hospitals and to nursing homes and so forth. And one of the reasons for that was the parlous state of the public services that had been left in by government austerity, by the actions of Tory and coalition governments over the past decade and a half. So this is what the opposition want to do today. They want to smuggle austerity back into this local budget. So if Councillor Garrido wants to campaign on that, that's okay with us, because I think people in this country have recognised the damage that austerity has done to our society.
Thank you, Councillor Antrobus. Okay, I just want to point out we're slightly running over on the agenda. I have still left to speak Councillor Collinson, Councillor Brocklehurst, and then I'm going to bring in the City Mayor and I'm going to move to vote. Councillor Collinson.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a few comments to make, really, some of which may have already been said, but Salford City Council is a local authority serving local people. Labour has been in charge of the city for over 50 years, during which time both Conservative and Labour governments have been in charge of the country. Salford is ranked 18th most deprived city in the country. 30% of the population live in areas classed as highly deprived. When something good happens, usually Salford will take all the credit for it, despite more often than not government funding helping to achieve that success. When something bad happens, it will always be the government's fault as far as Salford Labour are concerned. It appears that prior to 2010, the world did not exist. It appears that prior to 2010, we were not in financial turmoil, with notes left by the previous government to say, good luck, there's no money left. We and so many of the citizens of Salford are fed up hearing about the past 11 years. In less than 3 minutes into his speech, the City Mayor refers to the 11 years of austerity. Salford Labour Control Council is in charge of our city's finances and has been so for over 50 years. You need to stop blaming the government for everything and sort it out. And just in response to what Councillor Antrobus has just said, about not using reserves to fund expenditure. Of course we shouldn't under normal circumstances, but we are not in normal circumstances. We're in an emergency situation, and as a one-off, we should be prepared to try and soften the blow to the residents of Salford. Thank you.
Councillor Brocklehurst, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it very brief. My comments are fairly straightforward. This is really a sort of very clumsy financial trick Conservative colleagues on the council. We really need to call it out for what it is. They're proposing using £4.5 million of essential reserves that they know then got to replace, and they're going to replace that shortfall by 4.5 million of efficiency savings, which is basically cuts to essential services. So in fact, as has already been said, seeking to continue the 11 years of Tory austerity cuts. They're forcing on us a further 4.5 million in unspecified service cuts And thank you very much. They're unspecified. It's over to you, City Mayor, to make those cuts, and probably will blame you for that afterwards. But these are cuts to services that have already been cut to the bone by 11 years of Tory austerity. As the City has already said, we've already lost out to the tune of 222 million, over 50% of the budget. These are essential services. And yes, of course, they include job losses, but they'll also include loss of essential services when the people of Salford need them most. So, colleagues, I'm going to vote against the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brocklehurst. City Mayor. Sorry, Councillor Lewis, you're sharing your screen. Could you stop that for us, please? Councillor Kate Lewis, you're sharing your screen.
Okay.
Carry on, City Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chair.
On a point of order, Mr. Mayor, does the proposer of the amendment not have a right to sum up? And also the seconder did not speak and reserved his right to speak at the end.
Amendments don't have a right to reply.
Well, Councillor, can you just stop, please? Can I ask Sian to give me advice at this point?
Thank you. As we're on the amendment to the motion, Councillor Turner does have the right to speak again. So we would have the City Mayor and then Councillor Turner.
Point of order.
Apologies.
Point of
Councillor Merrill. Okay. Sian, carry on.
Oh, sorry. Yes. As this is an amendment to the original motion, Councillor Turner would have the right to respond, but the City Mayor hasn't spoken yet, so it would be the City Mayor and then Councillor Turner. Thank you.
Right, I give notice I want to raise that because I don't think that's the Constitution position under our Constitution and standing orders.
Could you indicate, please, Councillor Merry, which section you're referring to?
I don't have it to hand, but it indicates under our Constitution that the mover of the main motion has the right of reply to the amendment.
It is rather unclear because...
that's the way that it's always been interpreted by previous city mayors.
Yes, under Rule 18.7, it appears to be silent on the issue. So I'm not entirely clear, to be honest, what has been the previous custom and practice.
Chair, on a point of information, in a normal debate, movers of amendment have no right to reply. I mean, in a normal debate, they don't have a right to reply.
That's not what the city solicitor said. I'm sorry, she's given her advice and we should take it. And that is that we do have a right to reply. Or do Labour just not want to hear the truth?
It is, to me, it's silence on the issue in terms of point 80, Rule 18.7.
Okay, thank you, Sian. Okay,
so it's for the chair to make a ruling on the issue.
Okay, unpopular as this may seem, I am going to let Councillor Turner have a right reply, but I am going to move straight to the vote on the amendment straight after that. So I would ask Councillor Turner to be brief. City Mayor, would you like to carry on, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. So obviously we received this amendment at 8:04 this morning, and if you read the paperwork with the amendment, it claims to be an alternative budget. This, as far as I'm concerned, is not an alternative budget, and I'll give you my reasons as to why. Councillor Hines has also already indicated that the Conservative opposition on this council are not prepared to share with us their submission to the Provisional Local Government Finance Settlement. The reason why that's important is because colleagues will know that this full council debated a motion in January calling on the government, who claim to be serious about levelling up, to urgently increase funding to councils in England beyond the government's 292.7 million to urgently resolve the adult social care funding crisis and to make progress as soon as possible with the fair funding review, protecting people suffering from inequality, poverty, and also taking into account people's ability to pay in any future methodology. The Conservative opposition, as colleagues know, did not support that motion of this council. And today they're coming forward with an additional £4.5 million worth of cuts. And I say cuts because they're wanting us to use reserves in the short term to not increase council tax and the precept, and then obviously replenish those reserves, which I presume is the advice of our Section 151 officer. As has been indicated, they're not telling us where those cuts come from. And Councillor Jones, I think, highlighted exactly where they're coming from. People's jobs and frontline services. This is an abdication of responsibility from the Conservative opposition, in my opinion. And they're just simply passing the baton onto officers of this city council to find these cuts moving forward. I think that's pretty scandalous. The opposition know it's technically possible to do this, but it is contingent upon cuts being made to reinstate those earmarked reserves. What I find most scandalous about this proposal is there has been no utterance from the opposition around getting our care workers in the city of Salford up to the real living wage. I've highlighted in this budget the pressures in our budget currently with regards to rising poverty, an ageing population, business rates being reset, fair funding review on the horizon, the business rate retention pilot in Greater Manchester, us not knowing the future of that, the loss of sales fees and charges, pressure on the council tax and business rate collections, and obviously those pressures, as you can see, over the next 3 years amount to 32.7 million. You will know that we are using reserves in this budget, so it's misleading to suggest somehow we're not. And I know the opposition's moved amendment does acknowledge the use of reserves from this city council. 2.6 million is being used, 1.8 million in waste reserves, 1.9 million from business rate growth being returned to us, and also delivering on our integrated arrangements with the CCG, 4.4 million, protecting jobs and services in this city council. Colleagues will know that the Conservative-led LGA have also been putting pressure on the government to fully fund local government. Government has said there's no more returning to austerity, but here we have the local Conservative Party proposing £4.5 million worth of austerity cuts on our budget for 21-22. Colleagues will also know that 12 local authorities at the moment that we're aware of are in crisis talks with the government. £15 billion has been taken in cuts to Whitehall grants since 2010. And Councillor Antrobus was absolutely right when he talked about the resilience of local government. You know, the reason why we are here today is not just because of this single financial year, but it's because of a Tory government over the last 11 years taking nearly £222 million out of our revenue budget in cuts to the revenue support grant and unfunded budget pressures, which is forcing us in this city to hike council tax and precepts. The adult social precept was an invention of the Tory government. It is so disingenuine, this motion and proposal, if you like, or amendment to this budget before us today. I'm incandescent, really, with rage at how the leader of the opposition is seemingly suffering from selective amnesia and has forgotten the cuts that has been made. The leader of the opposition, and I'll finish on this, Chair, has previously joined with the Labour Party on this council to attend meetings with the government in previous financial years to ask for fair funding for local government. But today they're coming forward with 4.5 million of cuts, which will disproportionately impact frontline services and people who've been doing such a fantastic job in this city council during a COVID-19 pandemic. The people of this city will see through this utter nonsense. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, City Mayor. Can I just bring the City Solicitor back in for clarity again, please?
Thank you, Chair. I've located the relevant section. It's Rule 18.10, which just clarifies the situation in relation to amendments to motions. And it provides at Section B, if an amendment is moved, the mover of the original motion has the right of reply at the close of the debate on the amendment, but may not otherwise speak on it. And at Section C, that says the mover of the amendment has no right of reply to the debate on their amendment. So Councillor Turner does not have the opportunity to speak again for absolute clarity. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for clarity for that. Okay, then.
Point of order. Point of order, Chair.
I'm sorry, that's the constitutional rules. I'm
point
clear
of order,
on it.
Chair.
Who's calling?
It's
What's the order?
Arnie. Yeah, Arnie. Point of order.
Which is?
Accepting the ruling of the City Solicitor, can I point out that Councillor Clark, who seconded the motion, reserved the right to speak at the end. I feel that should count as having put his name down. Had he known he wouldn't be called at the end, he would have spoken at the beginning.
Point of order. First of all, I'm glad the City Solicitor has confirmed my view, obviously. But the fact remains that, as far as I'm aware, Councillor Clark did not reserve the right to speak, but simply seconded the motion.
I don't recall those statements.
That's correct.
I do not recall that particular. I recall Councillor Hines making the point that he reserved his rights, but I did not hear that. So I'm sorry. I'm going to move ahead to the name vote, please.
This is the name vote for the amendment. The City Mayor.
What's the noise?
I'm against the amendment, and this is not an alternative budget. Thank you.
Councillor Antrobus.
Against the amendment.
Councillor August. Councillor August. Councillor Bailey. Councillor Bailey. Councillor Barnes.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Bellamy.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Bentham.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Boschel.
Against.
Councillor Brocklehurst.
Against.
Councillor Brooks.
Against.
Councillor Birch.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Kamel. Councillor
Against
Kamel.
the amendment. Against.
Councillor Clark.
The Mayor was asked to vote for or against, not to give his opinion on the amendment.
Councillor Collinson.
For the amendment.
Councillor Critchley.
Against.
Councillor Dawson.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Dickman.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Fletcher.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Robin Garrido.
For the amendment, and we're not afraid to speak.
Councillor Goulden. Councillor Hamilton.
Against, and we're not afraid to speak either.
Councillor Hesling.
Against.
Councillor Hines.
Against.
Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Jolly.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Jones.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Kelly.
Against the amendment.
Councillor King.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Lancaster.
Against the amendment. Would have liked to have spoken, but never got chance.
Councillor Leitner.
For the motion.
Councillor Lewis.
Against.
Councillor Linden.
Against.
Councillor McCusker.
Against.
Councillor McIntyre.
Against.
Councillor Merry.
Against.
Councillor Morris,
Against.
Councillor Nelson,
Against.
Councillor Curran-Ziza,
Against the amendment.
Councillor Pevitt,
Totally against.
Councillor Gina Reynolds,
Against the amendment.
Councillor Neil Reynolds,
Against the amendment.
Councillor Ryan,
Against.
Councillor Saunders,
Assuming I'm not barred through my declaration, I am for the amendment.
Councillor Sharp,
Against.
Councillor Turner, Councillor Turner,
Sorry, I was on mute. For the amendment.
Councillor Wade,
Against the amendment.
Councillor Joan Walsh,
Joan?
Yes, you.
is that for or against?
Is that against?
Councillor Walsh, you're against the amendment.
She is, yeah.
No, it's you that they're asking.
It's
me?
Councillor Joan Walsh, for or against?
It's Joan Walsh.
Against.
Councillor John Walsh,
Against.
Councillor Ward,
I believe the city's for, so I'm for.
Councillor Warmisham,
Against.
Councillor Warner,
Against.
Councillor Wheeler,
Against.
and Councillor Wilson.
Against.
I think we can declare that amendment has fallen.
Mike,
Apologies, Chair.
can we
It's
note the
Councillor
comment?
Humphreys. Sorry, I had a problem with my technology.
Councillor Bailey and Councillor August have commented in the chat that they're against the amendment.
Okay, so Councillor Bailey is against, Councillor August is against, and was that Councillor Humphreys is against?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that, Chair. I had a problem with the technology. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So that's
Okay, so noted. So if the amendment has fallen, okay, and at this point we would move on to the substantive motion. But what I'm going to ask Council is that we have a 10-minute break, comfort break for all members, and that we return at 11:30 and continue the meeting. Are all members happy with that?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, so I'll see you all at 11:30. Thank you. welcome back to the members of the public and members to the meeting. We just to remind everyone, we are now on the substantive motion, and at this point, I'm ready to take questions and comments on the substantive motive, please. Any questions, any comment on the substantive?
John, obviously I have my right to, right of reply.
You have indeed. I've not forgotten that, Councillor. Councillor Hesling.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Chair. Today we've heard a lot from the Conservatives about how much support and money we have had from the government. But we also need to ask if this has been enough support for the people of Salford and to mitigate the effects of the pandemic, and to look at the position local authorities were in going into this pandemic. Over the last 10 years, this local authority has lost 222 million in cuts. And as the Conservative group know, we have sat here year after year while services people rely on have been cut back or got rid of altogether. This is the legacy that the Conservatives have left us with going into this pandemic. And who is it that has been on the COVID front line? As the Mayor has set out, it is communities, volunteers, council staff and NHS workers coming together to ensure that we are safe and that no one is left behind. The very organisations such as the Council that the Conservatives have sought to degrade and weaken have been one of the first to step up and play their part in helping communities through this crisis. This is the importance of local councils. They are there to coordinate, deliver and bring communities together, but the National Conservative government don't believe in a genuine partnership with local government, and that is the problem. Their belief that anyone can stand on their own leaves some of our most vulnerable communities badly exposed. They talk a good talk, but when it comes to action, there is nothing forthcoming. 4 years waiting for the social care green paper. The fact that they didn't trust local government to run test and trace and instead brought in the private sector when our public health department know our communities the best are there, and there are many other examples to show that this is the case. We can do so much better than this, but we need a genuine partnership with government to tackle the many problems that we face as a community going forward. And we need to reform the financing of local government, as we've previously heard, so that the people of Salford are not faced with paying more for a regressive council tax system which sees £1 million properties in London taxed at lower rates than those in many other areas. And we face significant challenges going forward. The isolation that many older people have faced over the last year means that social workers will have significant caseloads going forward. People's mobility has been badly affected, with many being stuck in their homes for over a year. I was recently speaking with some speech and language therapists to explain the challenges that they are now facing due to the isolation many residents have faced. Not to mention physiotherapists dealing with requests for stair lifts, etc., and the backlog there is in that, and the increased need for mental health support. None of this can be tackled without proper financial support. Another key area where the local and national government should and could be working together is skills funding and adult education. Coming out of this crisis, we are going to have high levels of unemployment, with many people needing to retrain in the hospitality, retail and gig economy. Local authorities are in an ideal place to deliver this. We know our local businesses and where key skills are needed, but government needs to step up and give us the support we need to deliver this for our residents. I hope that the Mayor Paul Dennett will continue to work with the university and other research bodies to look at the effects of the pandemic on employment and businesses. Private sector businesses are vital for our recovery, and we as a council must continue to look at where innovation is going to come from and work to attract more of those companies to our area. Unfortunately, I'm very doubtful that we will get the support that we need from this Conservative government going forward. But our Mayor and this Labour group will continue to campaign for what we need to deliver for the people of Salford, and only Keir Starmer can deliver on the genuine partnership we need between local and national government. The budget in front of us today represents our continued commitment to supporting residents and services through this pandemic, and I'm happy to support it in the vote later. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hedling. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Chair. Earmark reserves have been used a lot in the last debate. I very much doubt if there are many members not in the chamber at the moment, but if there are many members that understand exactly what all those reserves are for. But let's look at Labour, because the Conservative government have come under a lot of pressure today from members. They pushed us to join the EU vaccine scheme. Labour's Shadow Europe Minister claimed it was dumber and dumber that the UK opted out. Well, we all know where we would be if we had joined the EU vaccine scheme. It was a high risk, ordering millions of doses of vaccine at development stage, but it's paid off handsomely. And most people, millions of people actually, are now very thankful that we did. It was a risk, but it's paid off. They don't always, but this one's paid off. It's a simple fact that councils that are effective at collecting council taxes can keep taxes lower. Households that pay their taxes in Labour council areas end up subsidising those that don't. 9 out of 10 local authorities with the worst council tax collection rates in 2019-20 were Labour. And guess who's one of them? It's Salford. The message is clear. We need to collect more of the council tax that we levy. It will help keep the council tax down. We should not be surprised that the City Mayor proposes increasing council tax yet again. Council tax on a Band D property doubled under the last Labour government, up by 109%, from £688 to £1,439, costing families an extra £751 a year. The City Mayor and his colleagues want to scrap the 2% referendum rule. You bet they do. The message is clear. You can't trust Labour if you want to keep your council tax down. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Merry, please.
Well, thank you, Councillor Turner, for that party political broadcast on behalf of the Conservative Party, carefully written for you by Conservative Central Office. I have to tell you that you need to think very carefully about some of the accusations that you're making. There are people who are struggling to pay the council tax, I have no doubt. And partly it's because of the very difficult economic situation they find themselves in. And it's hardly surprising that the most deprived...
Point of information, please.
Hardly surprising.
Point of information.
Councillor Lightner, what's the point of information?
Just regarding to what Councillor Merry just said regarding the writing of speeches, I just wanted to point out, as a small group...
I don't think that's appropriate, is it?
Oh, sorry. Okay, right. I apologise.
I'm fascinated by the fact that Councillor Lightner knows who wrote Councillor Turner's speech. Perhaps Councillor Lightner wrote the speech himself, and I apologise if it's a
I didn't even say my comments. How can you be allowed to comment on my comment if I'm not allowed to say anything?
Gentlemen, please, can you?
Right. Okay, can I continue now? And I hope this is not allowed to take off my time, because there's a very important point I want to make about the deprivation. Yes. Labour authorities tend to be the most deprived in the country, and therefore it's hardly surprising that they are the ones that are most struggling to pay the council tax. And I think it's quite insulting to actually suggest that. I think the second point is that we do understand earmarked reserves, and basically Councillor Turner should have done his homework a long time ago if he's not entirely clear on what earmarked reserves are. They are there for a particular purpose, and he has been warned by the Section 151 officer that it would be dangerous to commit to reckless spending of that money. Therefore, that's why he proposed in his amendment to take £4.5 million out of the budget. He's quite clear. As far as he's concerned, he wants to support those people who pay the higher level of council tax rather than people who are struggling at the bottom. And I'm afraid if I have to choose between poorer people who are having real difficulty at the moment, I'm going to support them by not destroying the services that are provided for them, which are essential.
Thank you, Councillor Merry. Councillor Garrido.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I just say, unlike the Labour Party or Councillor Merry, we do write our own speeches and we do not read out pre-agreed questions, such as happens at every council meeting by Labour members. But what I want to say is, what we have heard today is the same old rhetoric from Labour. And there's only one option, which is to take more and more money from ordinary people of Salford. The time has come from this 50-year-old controlling group to give up, right? They're a party of old ideas, right? Old thinking and taxing the people until they can't tax anymore. Well, the people of Salford are coming to the end of that. The people of Salford are actually saying to us, we do not want to pay more taxes. And the only people that are supporting them, right, are the Conservatives. And we will be saying this to them over the next few weeks, that if you want to stop paying higher taxes, then you come along with the Conservatives, you vote the Conservatives, and at long last, because it's an all-out election, you have the chance on May the 6th to get rid of this 50-year-old controlling Labour group full of old ideas. We've not actually heard anything in this budget which will help the residents of Salford. Indeed, quite the opposite. It will cost them more. So it's time for you to go, Mr. City Mayor. It's time for you to go, Councillor Merry. It's time for you to let the good, honest, sensible economic thinking of the Conservatives to take over. Your time has come and gone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrido. Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Chair. I don't intend to speak for very long, but I'm absolutely furious to see the Conservative group use this council budget as an opportunity to get the messages out that they would want to get out on leaflets during election time. We're talking about important issues here, and we're talking about people's lives and livelihoods and the staff of the City Council and the support for the most vulnerable people in the city, of which you're proposing to cut 4.5 million's worth without telling us where. So I think it's quite disingenuous, the comments that are being made today. And I think the people of Salford are wise to it. And I think the people of Salford, I think the people of Salford deserve better than what they're getting from this Conservative group, who seem to only be interested in party politicking at the expense of the people of this city and the good governance of this council. And I think they ought to be ashamed.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Antrobus.
I think Councillor Nelson is quite right there. I just wanted to make a very brief comment in support of Councillor Garrido, because I know that he's written his own speech, because it's exactly the same speech that he made when he stood for the Mayor of Salford. It's exactly the same speech that he makes just a couple of months before he is defeated in a democratic vote. So I can confirm that, again, he is being very consistent in predicting that he will overturn the culture of this city, which is resolutely in favour of fairness and therefore in favour of Labour. And he always makes that promise just before he's beaten yet again.
Thank you, Councillor Antrobus. Councillor Kamel.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to remind some people that the National Conservative government is not only allowing us to do these precepts, but forcing us to, essentially, and assuming that we will when they announce their massive uplifts in public spending, especially on adult social care. It is assumed by the national government that these precepts will be applied, and they build it into their announcements of how much money they're putting into social care. So I'm not sure why the Salford Tories appear to be opposing their own government's policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kamel. Councillor Hamilton, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'd like to bring up about the free school meals, the lowering of poverty levels, so not as many people can qualify for the free school meals. Mental health, you can get a 6-week wait just for a referral. It's 18-week wait for a mental health referral. Too long. This Tory government are saying that's nationally acceptable. It's not. Let's talk real terms of what this money really means and where it's going, and and where it's not going. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. There be no other indications. I'm going to ask Councillor Hines to exercise his right of reply.
Thank you, Chair. Well, dear me. I mean, good God. You know, we listened to the Conservatives in their amendment, and they've started off again. It is an electioneering proposals that they're coming from. Over the last 12 months, I've reported time and time again, either overview or scrutiny or at council, the updates of where we are in this pandemic. And I want, first of all, to thank Joanne Hardman and her team for assisting me in presenting, in working out the budget this year, which is a balanced budget, no cuts. And then, but I've made quite clear the problems that we could be facing in the next couple of years, especially with the collection fund that now even the Conservative government accepts with the collection fund that should be corrected the following year. Now they've given us time to do that, but at the same time, they've not given us any help. Hopefully they will do, but they haven't at the moment. But I want to remind, when Councillor Turner talks about council tax collection, I'd like to remind him again that we're the most 18th underprivileged authority in the country. 18th, and he talks about, and the Conservatives talk regularly now about why the Mayor, myself and others keep mentioning austerity. Well, austerity over the last 10 and 11 years has devastated cities like Salford. As the Mayor has said, £22 million cuts, 50-odd% of our budget. Remember, prior to that, we used to clean the streets on average every 3 weeks. Now it's every 6 or 7 weeks. That's one of the problems because of austerity. We talk about austerity on a national plane. You see, we talk about the Nightingale hospitals, and certainly one not far away there in Manchester, that isn't really able to be used because they've not the staff that has been cut nationally in the National Health Service over the last 10 years. That is a disgrace. And I've not yet heard once where the Conservatives have ever criticised the austerity that we go in. So much so that about 3 weeks ago, the Financial Times actually confessed that it was wrong in supporting austerity over the last 10 years. The Financial Times, I'll repeat, was saying that. And they were saying they only did that because they were following the institutions vis-a-vis the IMF, the World Bank, the European Central Bank, all these institutions, and they're ruining the day that austerities take place. For the last 10 years, the developed world has lived in a deflationary issue, not inflationary, and all the crisis that that's caused. And I remember, the issue, let's face it, And I'm grateful, of course I'm grateful, that the Conservative government have coming forward and giving us monies to help businesses out, that they're furloughing people. But how long is that going to go on? You know, and by the way, if they didn't do that, good God, what would have happened? I could imagine there could have been riots on the streets. People would have been in desperate situations. In fact, they are to some extent, but that's it. That's the problem. And of course, the government really, this Conservative government, hasn't really appreciated the problems that the likes of Salford have experienced. Of course, they're having to do that now. But anyway, getting back to the budget, we've worked very, very hard over the last number of months to come to where we are today. And,
minute left, Councillor.
OK, thank you, Chair. But again, and it has been repeated time and time again, the council tax has been predicated by this government. You know, they're saying that they expect us to do that, and they're shouting from the rooftops of the core spending. Well, as the Mayor said, 87% of that core spending is because of the council tax. And I'll remind I'll finish on this, Chair. I'll remind the Conservatives that if they'd have supported us in last month's motion, then we could have worked together in trying with others to force the government to pay and wipe out council tax collection this year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. Okay, I now ask the City Mayor to speak with his right of reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Ceremonial Mayor. Obviously, we've had a good debate on the amendment moved by the Conservative opposition and obviously the substantive motion before Council today, which is the 2021-22 budget. What I would say is, as Councillor Hines has already highlighted, we've really tried to campaign and lobby national government to come forward with full funding to allow us not to increase the council tax and the adult social care precept. Unfortunately, when we move from the provisional local government finance settlement to the finance settlement for local government for this next financial year, government really didn't heed the warning signs from the Local Government Association and our own lobbying and campaigning as a Labour Party. I've already highlighted in the debate on the amendment that 12 local authorities that we're aware of currently are currently in crisis talks with regards to local government financing. I've also highlighted the historical context within which today's budget sits. £15 billion worth of cuts have been made to Whitehall grants since 2010. Local government has bore the brunt of austerity since 2010-11. And as Councillor Antrobus highlighted in the debate on the amendment, the resilience of local government as a consequence of that has been compromised. £222 million has been removed from our budget here in the city of Salford since 2010-11. That is as a consequence of cuts to the revenue support grant and as a consequence of unfunded budget pressures. In addition to rising poverty as a consequence of 10 years of austerity and more recently the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, an ageing population as well, we have significant challenges moving forward. I've already highlighted government's intention nationally to undertake a business rates reset. We're still waiting for government's fair funding review for the future of local government. We're also unsure about what government's intentions are on the business rate retention pilot for Greater Manchester. And we're also unsure about what government are going to do moving forward to properly recompense councils up and down the country for a loss of sales fees and charges. And as Councillor Hines has already highlighted, we also have significant pressures on council tax and business rate collection. And in some respects, this is not a surprise. We are the 18th most deprived local authority in the country, according to the government's index of multiple deprivation. Government has allowed us to smooth these pressures over the next 3 years. Smoothing pressures is not the same as providing councils up and down the country with the much needed resources they need. Last month in January, colleagues know we tabled a motion which wasn't supported by the Conservative opposition, calling on central government to urgently fully fund councils up and down the country. The leader of the opposition in this council chamber in previous financial years has joined myself and the leadership of this organisation to continue to lobby government for fair funding for local government. But it seems in the run-up to all-out elections in the city of Salford and mayoral elections in our city and mayoral elections across Greater Manchester, that the Conservative opposition today favour naked politicking rather than substantive engagement with the financial pressures we face as a local authority. Today, this budget is very much the best we can do given these circumstances we face. I've heard comments made by the opposition and also our side on the debate around council tax and precepts. Unfortunately, though, when you have had £220 million cut from your budget since 2010-11 and growing demands on services and growing economic crises as a consequence of the COVID pandemic, I'll wind up now, Chair, we are in a position where, unfortunately, we have to recommend a 1.99% increase in council tax and 2% on the precept. We have £32.7 million worth of pressures over the next financial year. So I sincerely hope, in the interest of financial prudence and in the interest of everyone in the city of Salford, that all members of this council chamber vote in favour of this motion on the 21-22 budget today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, City Mayor. Okay, Council is now asked to approve the recommendations as presented and outlined in the report, submitted in accordance with the Local Authorities Standing Orders England Amendment to Regulation 2014. This has to be done by a name vote. Therefore, can I now ask members to state clearly whether they approve or do not approve or abstain when your name is called by the Senior Democratic Services Officer, Mike Ralph. Thank you.
Okay. City Mayor Paul Dennett.
For the motion.
Councillor Antrobus.
For.
Councillor August.
For.
Councillor Bailey. Councillor Bailey. Councillor Barnes.
For the motion.
Councillor Bellamy.
For the motion.
Councillor Bentham.
For the motion.
Councillor Boschall.
For.
Councillor Brocklehurst.
For.
Councillor Brooks.
For.
Councillor Birch.
For the motion.
Councillor Kamel.
For.
Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Collinson.
Against.
Councillor Critchley.
For.
Councillor Dawson.
Approve the motion.
Councillor Dickman.
For the motion.
Councillor Fletcher.
For the motion.
Councillor Robin Garrido.
Against.
Councillor Goulden. Councillor Hamilton.
For the motion.
Councillor Hesling.
For.
Councillor Hines.
For.
Councillor Humphreys.
For.
Councillor Jolly.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For the motion.
Councillor King.
For the motion.
Councillor Lancaster.
For.
Councillor Leitner.
Against the motion.
Councillor Lewis.
For.
Councillor Linden.
4.
Councillor McCusker.
4.
Councillor McIntyre.
4.
Councillor, was that 4, Councillor McIntyre?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Councillor Merry.
4.
Councillor Morris.
4.
Councillor Nelson.
4.
Councillor Curran-Ziza.
4.
Councillor Pevitt.
For the motion.
Councillor Gina Reynolds.
For the motion.
Councillor Neil Reynolds.
For the motion.
Councillor Ryan. For. Councillor Saunders.
Against.
Councillor Sharp.
4.
Councillor Turner.
Against.
Councillor Wade.
For the motion.
Councillor Joan Walsh.
4.
Councillor John Walsh.
4.
Councillor Ward.
Against the motion to increase.
Councillor Warmisham.
4.
Councillor Warner.
4.
Councillor Wheeler.
4.
And Councillor Wilson.
4.
And I also noticed in the chat that Councillor Bailey's having trouble with his microphone, but he's voted in favour.
Thank you for
I
that.
think I can duly declare that motion is carried.
Thank you. So with that, the motion is carried, and I will now move on to item 7 in the agenda, which is the Treasury Management Strategy, the Annual Investment and Minimum Review Provision Policy Statement.
Thank
and
you,
with
Chair.
that, I'll hand over to who's speaking then?
Bill Hines.
Yeah. So, Councillor Hines, you're going to speak to this, yes?
I am, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair. Thank you. And obviously, we've had a strong and robust debate this morning. But we'll get to the Treasury Management now. Of course, this seems to be coming thick and fast lately, doesn't it? But actually, we have 3 a year. This is the most comprehensive of the meetings that we have on Treasury Management. And first of all, I would like to thank Tony Thompson and his team, who really do work very, very hard, making sure that our finances are up and ready and at need when we need to spend money, and how we spend money going forward in the Treasury Management. I've said so many times, of course, the bottom, you know, when we look at Treasury Management, we talked this morning about the bread and butter vis-a-vis the budget, but also Treasury Management is very, very important, because that, of course, assists us in how we present and work on a budget. So, you know, we've got to have enough cash there to meet the needs of the authority when needed. Of course, when we have any spare cash, we invest that. At the moment, of course, the rates are not very good on our investments, but we do our best. And on borrowing, which is the main feature that, you know, because of our capital programme, that's what we do. Now, the headlines this year, in this particular one, there are no short-term using of internal borrowing, but in short-term, sorry, I'll repeat that. In the short term, using internal borrowing, that's kind of cash that's not needed at the moment. That enables not to go out and use new borrowing. Capital financing requirement forecast to rise over the next 3 years because of the capital spend funded by the borrowing, and we've explained that and time again, although at the moment, again, in the last couple of years, we've endeavoured to keep that unsupported borrowing at £20 million. And it's not because I apologise for the capital programme. I believe that it served this city well in the past and will continue to do so. But at the moment, I am conscious of the revenue consequences of the capital programme, and therefore we've got to be circumspect on when we do spend and when we don't spend. So I just want to make that point. And the minimum revenue policy has not changed. So, I mean, members have got all the details of the Treasury management there, and I know it's at times very, very technical. And then I've not had any notice that there are any questions to be asked. But if they are, and because of the technicalities, I may have to come back to people later on. With that, Chair, I move the Treasury management paper.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. Councillor Garrido. Sorry, Councillor Robin Garrido.
Yep, thank you. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, well, first of all, can I thank Councillor Hines for presenting the Finance and Support Services Treasury Management Strategy Annual Investment. As Councillor Hines inferred, it's a technical document, and certainly it's not one that, as I regard, as being something that we need any political debate on, but purely just to say that the finance team who work on this document under Bill Hines obviously do an extremely thorough job, and I think we should thank them for that. I'm only just going to make one comment, and I mean, Councillor Hines has heard this many times before from me and from members of the opposition, and that is that we do have grave concerns over the capital programme, in particular the building of office blocks, the funding of the stadium, etc., etc. And we do think that in these difficult times, we ought to be thinking very carefully about what we actually borrow money for. Our borrowing is at an extremely high level. We do have concerns over that, but putting that to one side just for the moment, in terms of the way that the accounts are being managed by our finance team, then I don't think we can have any worries at all there. And I look forward to be working with them in detail next year. Thank you.
Thank you. There being no other indications, Councillor Hines, would you like to respond to Councillor Garrido, and then I'll move to vote after I've got it proposed and second. Councillor Hines.
Sorry, Chair, I was having trouble unmuting there. Yes, of course, as Councillor Robin Garrido has said, you know, we are very circumspect, as I've said, and we will only spend money, you know, if we really see a benefit of that, both for the residents of the city and, of course, if it does help us, our base budget going forward. As I say, I'm not going to apologise. I perhaps disagree, have disagreements with Councillor Garrido and others, but I do say again that without our investments over the years, we would be in a very, very poorer position than we are today. So with that, no, as I've said, Chair, I move the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. As mover, do we have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Councillor Pevitt.
Thank you, Councillor Pevitt. Okay, I'm now going to ask the Council to approve the strategies and policy statements as detailed in the report.
Aye.
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 Aye. Approve.
Agreed.
Approve.
Aye.
Thank you. I'm going to accept that as approved. I'm now going to move on to item 8 of the Council agenda. And again, the lead member for Finance and Support Services, Councillor Bill Hines, is asked to present his report, after which again I will ask members if they have any questions or comments. Thank you, Councillor Hines.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm moving this financial medium-term financial strategy. And of course, because of what's been said all day and before we even got here today, things are very, very difficult, and I don't need to repeat all the difficulties there. But yes, we are endeavouring to have a longer term strategy rather than go from year to year, where we can't really plan in any way, shape or form to do that. And of course, as has been said this morning by the City Mayor himself and myself, and time again, this time last year, the City Mayor went forward with what we termed a 3-year budget. And that was 2 years of no cuts and a no cut budget and balanced budgets. In the third year, we had a smallish compared with what we're looking at these days of about £3 million. But of course, that's been blown sky high. So we have been working very, very hard, even in these difficult circumstances, to look forward to a longer term, medium term financial strategy. Of course, there are difficulties in assumptions there, and many of them are assumptions, as the 151 officer has often repeated to the mayoral team and others. The difficulties that are there. You know, the mayor talked about when he presented the budget on the business rates, the fair funding, reset, the business rate reset, all these and other streams of risk that are significant. So, you know, it's important that we look at this and work to do whatever we can. And as you can see, it's a very, very comprehensive report. I don't intend to go through that. I just want to let members know, read it at their leisure. And of course, we're always there from any member to listen to their observations on it. But overall, it's something that we really want to do. We will be going back to government, has been said. We want government to assist us in longer term strategies that can help the residents of this city. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I will take any questions and do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. City Mayor, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for presenting the report, Councillor Hines. I did refer to this in my address to Council on the 2021-22 budget. I just want to place on record my thanks and appreciation to our Section 151 officer and all our colleagues who work within accountancy and financing. And as Councillor Hines has already illustrated, the future is massively uncertain in terms of local government financing. So it is absolutely right and proper that this City Council pursues a medium-term financial strategy to try and provide some certainty in probably what are the most uncertain times for local government financing that local government has ever seen, certainly in my lifetime. Councillor Hines did talk about the future, and I really commend officers and himself and others who've worked on this strategy, because the future is massively uncertainty. So I have previously illustrated, the business rates reset. We don't know what the implications of that are. We don't know what the implications of COVID are in terms of rising poverty. We don't know what the implications are in terms of an ageing population and demands on adult social care services. We're still awaiting a fair funding review from central government. We're unclear as well about the business rate retention pilot for Greater Manchester. And we're also unclear about what government are going to do to recompense councils for a loss of sales fees and charges. And then finally, there is huge uncertainty around what pressures we're going to see in terms of council tax and business rate collections moving forward. Government, as we know, has allowed us to smooth those pressures over 3 years. But as I said previously, smoothing is not the same as actually fully recompensing councils up and down the country for a loss of business rates and council tax as a consequence of the pandemic. We know things are really precarious for local government at the moment. I've talked about 12 local authorities being in crisis talks with the government. And we also know that over these next 3 years, as things stand currently, we've got £32.7 million worth of pressures in our budget. Colleagues know we are using reserves in this next financial year, 2.6 million and 1.8 million of waste reserves, as well as 1.9 million that's been returned from Greater Manchester from business rate growth. And also our work with our CCG colleagues and the Hospital Trust is also contributing to our budget for 21-22. But I have to say, this work is going to be absolutely critical in terms of moving the finances of this local authority forward. So I just thank Councillor Hines and officers for all the work on this, and it's something that we need to get to as soon as this, well, obviously we've put the budget to bed today, and obviously, over the next coming weeks, months, we need to start work on planning for the future to tackle the uncertainty that is in the system. And also importantly for me, to lobby and campaign, because government really needs to honour their word and level up and rebalance the economy. And at the heart of all of that, for me, sits local government financing. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, City Mayor. Councillor Greedo, Councillor Robin Greedo, please.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'm sure, Councillor Hines, you would not expect me to be able to give a full endorsement of this particular item. There are clearly areas in there which we have concerns about, and of course we've had the debate this morning about the council tax, and that of course is referred to on page 178. So we certainly have concerns, and I think, and certainly listening to the City Mayor just now, certainly I think the way that he views assistance from the government is probably a different way to the way that we would actually see assistance to the government, because we believe, in fact, that the government has been extremely generous, not just to Salford, but across the country to many local authorities, with billions of pounds actually spent without a second thought to actually support all our areas. So whilst I welcome this report, I understand that this is clearly the strategy, if you like, of the ruling group. We can't actually vote in favour of it because that would be hypocritical. However, we will not vote against it because it is the council's strategy at the moment. Obviously, when we produce our own after May, it will be different. So on this occasion, we will take the option of actually abstaining on this particular item on the basis that we can't support everything that's included. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greedo. Councillor Jones.
I only wanted to mention that Councillor Robin Greedo has continued to say he's worried about borrowing, and then he's thanked the government for borrowing massive amount of money and distributing it to local authorities. Some hypocrisy there somewhere, I think.
Positive information, Chair. I think that Councillor Jones has taken that totally out of context.
Councillor, no, you can't make another speech, Robin.
I'm not making another speech. So you're not in the chair.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you the real...
Roger, you're not in the chair. You're not in the chair. I'm speaking.
Councillor
So the
Jones,
Mayor tells me to stop.
Please.
Can I continue with the point of information, Chair?
The
point of information
regarding
is,
what?
Yeah, the point of information is there is a difference between capital expenditure on building office blocks and capital expenditure to support our local communities.
Okay, Councillor, that's noted. Thank you. Right. Just so I know where I am in the agenda, I've got no other. Oh, wait a minute, Councillor Kamel, last minute.
No, I was just requesting a named vote, please. Thank you.
Chair, if I may just advise, there's provision in the Constitution for a name vote. There has to be a certain amount of members. If you can just bear with me while I check this.
It's 3, I think.
I think it's 3, yes.
Yeah, it's 3, Sharon, so if 2 other members can ask for that name vote, we can take it.
Yes.
Councillor Dawson.
Councillor Birch.
Councillor Pevitt.
Okay.
Chair?
We have... Yes,
Chair?
Carry on. Councillor Hines?
Yeah, just to wind up. Yes, I think that we should all get together and really look at how we can best process, as we've said, about the medium-term strategy. It's very, very important to do it. And just on the parting shot with Councillor Robin Greedo, I mean, he's often said to me, the government has no money. So if the government has no money, how can it be generous?
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Hines. Okay, with that, I'm going to ask the council to go to a name vote on this item 8, please.
Okay, City Mayor Paul Dennett.
For the medium-term financial strategy, thanks.
Councillor Antrobus, I think he may have left. Councillor August. Councillor August.
I bet they've left out of them.
Councillor Bailey. Councillor Barnes.
4.
Councillor Bellamy. I think she may have left.
4.
Councillor Bentham.
4.
Councillor Boschel.
4.
Councillor Brocklehurst.
4.
Councillor Brooks. Maybe still having trouble with his microphone. Councillor Brooks. Councillor Birch.
4.
Councillor Kamel.
4.
Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark. Councillor Collinson.
Abstain.
Councillor Critchley.
4.
Councillor Dawson.
4.
Councillor Dickman.
4.
Councillor Fletcher.
4.
Councillor Robin Garrido.
Abstain.
Councillor Goulden. Councillor Hamilton.
4.
Councillor Hesling.
4.
Councillor Hines.
4.
Councillor Humphreys.
4.
Councillor Jolly.
4.
Councillor Jones.
4.
Councillor Kelly.
4.
The team gets together on that. We can fill those gaps. Yeah.
Councillor King.
4.
Councillor Lancaster. Councillor Lancaster. Councillor Leitner.
4. Dave Lancaster. 4.
Okay. Councillor Leitner. Councillor Lewis.
4.
Councillor Linden.
4.
Councillor McCusker.
4.
Councillor McIntyre.
4.
Councillor Merry.
4.
Councillor Morris.
4.
Councillor Nelson.
4.
Councillor Curran-Ziza.
4.
Councillor Pevitt.
For the motion.
Councillor Gina Reynolds.
4.
Councillor Neil Reynolds.
4.
Councillor Ryan.
4.
Councillor Saunders.
Abstain.
Councillor Sharp.
4.
Councillor Turner.
Abstain. Sorry, muted again.
Okay, Councillor Wade.
4.
Councillor Joan Walsh.
4.
Councillor John Walsh.
4.
Councillor Ward.
Abstain.
Councillor Warmisham.
4.
Councillor Warner.
4.
Councillor Wheeler.
4.
And Councillor Wilson. Councillor Wilson.
Hello, it's Councillor Clark here. I couldn't unmute. I want to abstain. Thank you.
Okay. So no response from just try Councillor Wilson again. Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, I think Councillor Wilson's put something in the chat box. He's trying to re-enter the meeting.
Right.
4.
Was that Councillor Wilson 4?
It's Councillor Wilson 4.
Yeah.
I've actually been thrown out twice.
Okay. And I note that Councillor August is voting 4 as well. So I think declare that is duly passed.
Okay, just to refresh my memory, I didn't hear it. Could you just remind me who the seconder of the actual motion was?
Councillor Pevitt. Councillor Pevitt seconded it, I think.
Councillor Pevitt. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Just so we've got it on record.
Yeah.
Thank you. So with that, then we've adopted the medium-term strategy 2021 to 2024. Okay, and at this particular junction, I have not been notified of any other business. Okay, thank you very much for your baptism of fire today, ladies and gentlemen members. And with that, I will now declare the meeting closed. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations.
Well done.
Well done.